The colonial mentality and caucasity of Prince William, contemptuous remarks denigrating the entire continent of Africa for overpopulation, if I speak. Dr. Shola Mos Shobamimu. Hello! Welcome to Tuesday's episode of the Toya Talks podcast. I am your host, each and every week. My name is Toya Washington. Welcome, welcome, welcome! We have entitled this episode King Richard. And for those of you who do not know, there is a new film charting the lives of Serena, Venus and their father, Richard, who basically manifested his two amazing daughters to greatness in tennis. And before I get into all of that, because I actually saw it on Sunday and I knew that I would do a podcast about it, but I hadn't scoped it out until I actually watched the film. And during the film, I was literally taking notes. If you know anything about me, I've always got a notebook. A notebook is always near me. And if I'm out, then I've always got my notes open on my phone and I'm always taking notes and stuff like that. But before we get into this episode, I do want to talk about the opening tweet by Dr. Shola, who basically, you know, she said it all, the caucasity of it. Prince William, if I actually start speaking, shall we talk about colonialism? Do you want to talk about that? I don't know why the royal family can't leave Africa alone, and you've got many countries who are now looking at the monarchy. How can a head of state be the monarchy in the UK? Like, if that doesn't still reek of colonialism and the remnants of it, I don't know what it is. So I want to give a big shout out to Barbados, because you basically said, we don't want her, we don't want the Queen, we don't want the monarchy, we want to be a republic, we want to be an independent country, and we don't want to be reporting to the colonizers. And I have to respect that, and I love that. And I love the fact that countries who have the monarchy as head of state are now actually reevaluating the essence of it and actually the history of that. So big shout out to Barbados. But Prince William, I need someone to explain something to me, but we're going to break it down. So Prince William basically gave a speech recently, and I say a speech, was in some forum, whatever. And he basically blames the population growth in Africa for wildlife loss. Now, I don't know if Prince William knows that Africa is a continent and not the country. Like, I just need him to know that. But I kind of feel like his history lessons and their lessons on his ancestors would have told him that. This propaganda towards Africa is really disgusting. Now, somebody can say it's coincidence with this new variant that Boris has now decided to tell us about, which apparently originated in South Africa, but we're going to get to that in a minute. But this propaganda, this media propaganda about Africa is really becoming quite discriminatory, quite disgusting. But also, it further highlights the ignorance of white people. The ignorance that they really do, they don't actually look in their own back garden. When they talk about corruption, they'll come in and tell us about the countries within Africa and how corrupt they are. Hi, Boris. But what I can't get my head around is Prince William doesn't want to talk about his Uncle Andrew. He don't want to talk about it. He don't want to talk about kind of what happened with Meghan and his brother and the way in which they were treated within the royal household. He doesn't want to talk about that. He wants to take his thin lip self to talk about Africa and the wildlife population. Well, I see a lot of wildlife within the government, and I ain't seen you talking about them, William. And there is a reason why you're balding before your time. Bad mind. You need to face your wife. That's what you need to. Face your wife, face your family, and have a conversation with your Uncle Andrew and his relationship with Epstein and that whole situation. You want to talk about something? Let's talk about the Glendale Maxwell trial that has started today in New York. Let's have that conversation. Now you don't want to talk about that. You want to take your thin lips after and your dirty tongue to come and start talking about Africa. Let's talk about the British Museum. Yeah, let's talk about stolen artifacts. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the slave trade. You want to talk about Africa? Let's actually start from the root of it. Let's start with the slave trade. Let's start with colonialism. Let's have that conversation now. You want to come and tell us about the wildlife while you've got animalistic people behaving like bloody animals in that flipping Buckingham Palace that we're all fucking paying for. If I was you, William, I would face your wife. That's what you need to do. Face your wife, and you I know that you guys ain't gonna let that go over your head. Face your wife, William. Anyway, moving on. So, where are we going to start? I don't even know where to start. Where we're starting. Okay. So, you guys, Prime Minister Boris Johnson recently made an announcement, and it was it's actually the health secretary that made the announcement, and then we had an announcement from Boris. And basically, there is a new COVID variant. Surprise, surprise! Not like I've literally predicted this for the last few months, but I digress. And it's called Omicron, and apparently originated in South Africa. And I say apparently because COVID itself didn't originate in South Africa, but no one wants to talk about that. They want to have an investigation, keep it out of the media glare in case of offending. Yeah. But you're happy to continuously perpetuate discriminatory behaviour, acts and things like that towards a whole continent. Okay. As a result of this identification of a new COVID variant, Boris Johnson decided to place travel restrictions on 6 African countries. Yeah, 6 of them. And the 6 African countries he has put restrictions on. Basically, I think it was we are not in the UK. They're not accepting any flights in from these 6 countries as of I believe it was midnight Friday or Saturday, something like that. And then obviously, anyone who has been to those 6 countries before then obviously have to take a PCR test, have to self-isolate, all the rest of it. So when they were deciding on the name of this variant, they use a particular alphabet. I think it's a Latin alphabet. Listen, all I know is the next letters in the alphabet were X and I, but in order not to offend China, they didn't want to use that because the president of China, his initials start with XI. I'm just going to leave that there. But it's okay to basically tell us and announce where you think the variant has originated from. But the real actual, where did COVID itself originate? Where? They don't want to talk about that because COVID didn't originate in Africa, by the way. But however, when people were talking about where COVID originated, people were being accused of being discriminatory against a particular country. But it's okay to do it when it's Africa. Yeah? I just want to know if Prince William was in the room when they were deciding where this COVID variant originated from, because clearly this whole obsession with Africa is getting very unhealthy. And if you're going to be obsessed with Africa so much, maybe return the stolen artifacts in your fucking museums. Let's have that conversation. Let's do that. I mean, Boris has also said that he wants to reintroduce on Tuesday, the 30th of November, he will be reintroducing mandatory use of masks indoors and on public transport. Now, I don't know about you guys, but the way I'm feeling is that I honestly believe that if there is an increased case of COVID, I actually blame the local government, and I put the blame squarely before Boris Johnson, and I'll tell you the reason why. When all other countries were still enforcing the mandatory use of masks in the 6 metre rule distance, just because they had found all these vaccines suddenly under their pillows, they decided to remove all these restrictions, right? No mask, no nothing. And when I knew we were in a sunken place is when I went to my local Sainsbury's and all the restrictions had moved, as if to psychologically tell people we've got COVID under control. COVID's left us for a while. We're taking a bit of a break. There was no urgency or seriousness that was being communicated about the severity of COVID. Now they've got this variant, and let me put to you on notice, this variant that they have named Omicron is a variant of concern. It's a variant of concern because they are not sure about how the vaccine is able to tackle this variant. In fact, I'll go as far as saying that they are so nervous about this that they've now decided to reinforce the reintroduction of masks and some of the restrictions. That tells you the severity and the seriousness in which they're placing on this variant. Now, don't get me wrong. I always understood that COVID will continue to have various variants. I always knew that they would get to a point where it would get really bad. I don't think we're there yet. But we're watching other countries. So let's take Europe, for example. We almost follow the lead of Europe in that we saw the increased infection rates in Europe, and whilst like Austria are just like on the other spectrum of what I think is pragmatic. I mean, you basically saying Austria basically said all their citizens it's mandatory now to get a vaccine. The UK better not try that, because while there are democracy, and I talk about democracy, but I talk about democracy in terms of white people. White people do not like to be told what to do in this country, and they do not like to be told what to do by a government that is so out of touch with this country. And I say white people, I'm talking about white people who have, let's be honest, I feel as though a lot of the protests that have happened in Trafalgar Square that is not currently being publicised, there's a lot of white people there. I'm not seeing as a majority black people. I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing white people. And for me, as far as I'm concerned and where I stand with it, I just feel like this country is not the type of country where you can mandate vaccines, because I just believe that the voices that get heard here in the UK, I think are mainly white, upper class. I do. And I feel like the upper class they believe that they are in a league of their own. They don't like to be told what to do, and they don't want to pay taxes. And therefore, the government will appease them. They will do anything to appease them, because in fact, money talks and money has influence, and the government know this. So to even contemplate making the vaccine mandated in this country, I doubt it. However, when you start seeing that happen in other European countries, you do get a bit twitchy. I got a bit twitchy. That being said, other countries were still, they still had mandatory mask wearing in certain public spaces. They were still very cautious about how they lifted the restrictions. So I always felt that was eased quite slowly. This was the only country who was so desperate to lead in the vaccination that they were prepared to risk the health of its citizens to prove that the vaccine is working. That's exactly what happened. Because you're playing psychological games with your citizens when you say to your citizens, don't worry about your masks, don't do this, it's fine. We've got a vaccination program. It's on the assumption that everyone's going to vaccinate, and that's not what's happened, first and foremost. But secondly, you're psychologically telling people that the COVID's not as bad as you first thought. Now you want to say, actually, we found a new variant, mate. Hello, yeah, new variant identified. And now you say, actually, all those masks that you threw away, can you rebuy them again? 6 meters, probably, because we're going to get to that point. And I'd say in classrooms as well, kids in year 7, you've got to wear masks. Right, you get on the train, mandatory, wear masks. You can't keep playing with people. You need to just be straight. And this is the reason why with this current government, I do not trust them, because I'm not getting a straight answer. I don't feel as I'm getting the full picture. I don't feel as though I am being able to make an informed decision about the vaccine or about anything, because I'm getting dribs and drabs of probably quite a sinister story, right? I hate the way that I feel that Boris kind of flippantly, he flippantly disposes of the seriousness of COVID. And he's done it in such a way that, for example, he gave a speech, I believe, on Saturday and basically said, right, we're introducing the use of masks, but I'm not enforcing it until Tuesday. How serious are people going to take it if you say, right, it's Saturday, don't worry, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, 4 days. In 4 days' time, you need to wear your mask. It doesn't make sense. You would make it immediate. With immediate effect, we are reintroducing the mask wearing in indoor spaces, which includes, and you list it, and on public transport. You're waiting 4 days. This is 4 days of which you know that people could catch COVID. The variant's already in the country. They knew the variant, that variant's in the country, they knew. But yet you're telling people to wait 4 days before you actually put your masks on. This is a country that you're teaching how to wash their hands for 20 seconds because you know they're damn right dirty and don't have any clear concept of hygiene, talk less personal hygiene. You're literally teaching people how to wash their hands. And yet you still think that it was okay to lift the restrictions as quickly as you did because you had a vaccination program, only now to find out that your very vaccine may not actually have the efficacy required to actually deal with the current variant. It really is scary. And at the same time, they're not sure how the vaccine fares with the current variant, but they're telling everybody to go get it. So my thing is, are you asking me to get a vaccine that you don't know is actually going to work in the current variant that you have labelled a variant of concern? But yet I should still trust you. And on top of that, I should wait in the queue for also a booster. How about I give you a booster? Get it, sort your life out, sort it out, sort out the comms. Every time Boris talks, I feel anxiety. And I need someone to check on Christopher Whitty. because I ain't seen him for a while. I heard from him, and I always felt very comforted when Christopher Whitty spoke. And I think what it was about Christopher Whitty is he believed in the science. So in this instance, we had to be led by the science. And as much as I felt the government tried to deviate and tried to skew the science to kind of fit into their rhetoric, I always felt like Christopher Whitty was very pragmatic in his approach and his explanation. And you could tell that there was, like, in my opinion, you could tell that Christopher Whitty and Boris didn't always agree, because Boris, I always feel was very impulsive, and he doesn't actually think about things long term, but rather he just thinks about things in the here and now, i.e. being impulsive. But I've just Googled, and it says Christopher Whitty is a former United Kingdom government chief scientific advisor. So I need to know when he became a former. When did that happen? You know, all these things that happen in secret, and it just makes me uncomfortable. I don't know who the new chief scientific advisor is, but to be quite honest with you, I felt always comforted when Christopher Whitty spoke. And it wasn't fear-mongering or scaremongering. I think he just had a very pragmatic way of looking at science, and took a very realistic approach in a way that the government isn't. I think that the current health secretary, I don't know, I always feel like the current health secretary is from he's a businessman at the end of the day, and I feel like I always question whether he was right for this job. I do, because I think he's an ex-banker, and for him, he's thinking about the economy, and I definitely feel that the government have been driven by their need to keep the economy running, and not thinking about the people who actually are the ones that are keeping this economy going. And I feel like when you do not centre the health of your citizens, this is where we find ourselves now. Now, I can almost guarantee you that Christmas won't be cancelled, because Boris needs to go to the pub. Yeah, he needs to go to the pub. Yeah, he's going there to drink a pint and find a comb. So we're definitely going to have Christmas, even though that we have supply chain issues. I can't find Evian water anywhere, to be honest with you. I love Highlands water, but Kay likes Evian. I can't find it anywhere. We've got supply chain issues, so let's get this right. We're dealing with supply chain issues and the fallout of Brexit, let's be honest, because them fishermen there's always an argument, right? Supply chain issues are affecting every industry, yeah? Can't get Evian water, the shelves are half empty, we've got real issues. Every now and then, we've got petrol shortage. Yeah, you heard me, petrol shortage, and we are in the thrust of a global pandemic in which we have identified a variant of concern, Omicron. Boris is going to reward people with Christmas, because what's going to happen off the back of Christmas is going to be how he justifies the next decision he makes. So what I mean by that is, we quite possibly could go into a lockdown, or at least we can see some very, very, very rigorous restrictions. And he needs to be able to say, well, you had Christmas and you decided to not be responsible, so this is the repercussions. And he doesn't want to be seen as the bad guy. I do believe Dominic Cummings, who was Boris Johnson's former advisor, and I've done previous episodes about Dominic Cummings, and please somebody check on him, because I haven't heard anything. He was like our domestic WikiLeaks, and he's kind of disappeared, so I'm a bit worried about him. Can someone check on him, let me know how he's doing? Anyway, I do believe Dominic Cummings when he said that Boris Johnson is obsessed with public opinion and how he comes across in the media, and I think because of that, we are going to have Christmas, and he's going to say, yep, go and see your grannies, go and see your aunties, go and see your uncles. He's not going to necessarily enforce the need to test or anything. He's not going to do that. He is going to make sure we have ketchup in the country, because if we run out of ketchup, Brussels sprouts and potatoes for Christmas, all hell's going to break loose. And then what will happen is after Christmas, that's when we're going to see a clampdown. I think then we're going to really understand the true veracity of Omicron variant of COVID. And I am concerned because of the way that the politicians are speaking. I'm concerned because up until recently, or I say recently, up until Saturday, I've not necessarily felt that the government have taken COVID as seriously as it should be taken, as other countries have taken it. But this particular variant has them uncomfortable. And I think because of the initial view of how the current vaccine is not necessarily the efficacy is not as strong for this particular variant, and the mutations are too much. And I think they are now considering the fact that they cannot control this. And now I think over the coming weeks, I think we're going to actually understand the reality of this. So what I am going to say to people is, yeah, I've been a bit funny on Instagram, and I've said to people, make sure you go and get a Costco card and learn the lessons of last year. But I really do mean it. Go and get yourself a Costco card and go and stock up. Yeah? there's a difference between panic buying and stocking up. Costco is a wholesalers, so go and stock up. You're allowed to do that. Do you know what I mean? I definitely think you need to go and download Amazon Prime, Netflix, Zeus, all of that stuff, and go and subscribe to Flipping Clubhouse, because I think that this winter is going to be bloody rough. I do think that. And I think that all the failings of the government are going to be highlighted through what's going to happen over the next few weeks. And I think people need to be careful. And I think you need to go and get some lateral flow tests from I think it's your local pharmacy. And I think you need to have test kits in your house. And I think testing is going to be a way of life. I think we're not going to be able to test our way out of this, but we are going to be able to be a bit more responsible for how we interact outside of our homes. And that is the bit that I don't think has been communicated. I know people who have never done a lateral flow test before, so therefore testing isn't part of their life. Until we acknowledge that COVID is here for now, until we acknowledge that, we're not going to then implement what we need to safeguard our health. And the government aren't telling us about, all they talk about is a vaccine. They're not talking about eating healthy. They're not talking about making sure you take your vitamins, vitamin C and vitamin D. They're not talking about things like that. And I think that there are also natural ways in which we as human beings need to be able to ensure that we are being healthy, so that our immune system stands a chance against any virus, irrespective of whether it's flu or it's COVID. Now, I do think we're going to all of us are at least once going to experience COVID, and I know that. How we're going to react is where the concern lies, right? Because everybody's reacting differently. The idea of me losing my sense of taste, I'm very scared, but I reckon that it would mean that I lose a bit of weight. And since I've got my traditional wedding next year, I don't actually think that's a particularly bad idea. However, I'm not wishing that on myself, and I'm trying to be safe. Anyone that knows me, I don't particularly like leaving my house anyway. And when I do, I'm very, very safe. I try to keep my usage of public transport to a minimum. I can count on one hand how many times I've used public transport this year. I drive anyway, by the grace of God, so I'm happy with that. But I just wanted to raise this because I just think it's important that we not only take this variant of concern seriously, but also try and learn the lessons of last year, because clearly the government isn't. And I think we need to be very informed about what we put in our bodies, how we manage our health, and how we navigate COVID, because ultimately I feel like the government are like the blind leading the blind. So we have to be able to feel confident to ask certain questions. Ask your medical professionals questions. I ask my doctor questions all the time. And make sure you make informed decisions about your health, and not just decisions based on a whim or based on advice that someone's just decided to tell you, but you haven't been able to sense check. I do want to quickly talk about our good sis, Lani Good. And I have previously spoken about her on a podcast episode before, and I have spoken about her on my Instagram page. I really like Lani. I think that Lani is herself. I think she's honest. I think that she's in a lot of pain, and I think she's genuinely very upset. Now, for those of you who do not know, Lani Good used to date Tion Wayne. They were in a relationship, according to Lani, and I say according to because, what happened between them, none of us actually know. But what we do know is we have 3 versions: her version, his version, and the truth. And I do believe Lani Good. I'm going to tell you that now. And I believe her because I think, people probably think, what do you believe? So Tion Wayne basically and Lani used to date, and it is alleged that Tion Wayne used her bank card, set up some type of a direct debit, and purchased a watch, and I believe the watch is about £10,000. Correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm a bit sketchy on the details, it is I'm not too far off, basically. Now, the issue here is that Lani is basically saying she did not give permission for him to get this watch in her name, and as a result, she is now lumbered with having to pay the monthly charges, which of course she's not going to do, because she says that she did not give express permission or any permission for her card to be used in that way. That being said, those of you who know Lani is very expressive. She's very much a creative, and she's very funny, and she has done everything to try and get Tion Wayne to pay her back the money. He hasn't done that. Now, she's had to deal with debt collectors, and she's hired a lawyer, etc., etc. And she's reported this to police and the fraud division within the UK to try and kind of get this sorted out. But ultimately, and I've read it where Lani has said it's the principle. It's the principle of the fact that somebody defrauded her. It just happens to be somebody who's in the public eye, someone who's a musician, and he is rich. Let's not lie, he is rich. He has money. Now, The bit that I have an issue with is obviously what's happened in the last 24 hours, where basically Lani shared with everybody on TikTok, I think it was, a letter that she got from a debt collection agency. And what she said is every few months, debt collection agencies send her a letter basically trying to pursue this debt. And it basically triggers her and it reminds her of how she was defrauded by Tion, allegedly, and kind of how he's placed her in this situation, allegedly. And obviously, Tion Wayne hasn't necessarily directly addressed this up until today. Now, I listened to everything Tion Wayne said, and all I got from what he said was that had she come to me, she being Lani, gave him permission, is what he said. So he's not denying that this happened, but he is denying that he did it behind her back. And basically gave her permission to use her card to do this. Now, Tion was going on and on and on, but the reality is this, Tion, even if she gave you permission, the fact is you acknowledge that you took out credit in her name to pay for a watch. The fact is no one's been keeping up with them payments. That's a fact, right? Because the debt collection agency would not then be pursuing Lani. Wouldn't it be mature as an adult and as a alleged man to then say, actually, do you know what? I haven't been paying these monthly charges, whether she gave you permission or not, and just pay it off, because you are now in the financial position to do that. He hasn't done that. What he said is, if she had come to me and said this and this, I would have done it, no problem. I would have done it. Why has she got to come to you? Why do you need somebody to come to you to tell you to do the right thing? And ladies, let me say this to you. This is where we have to learn the lessons here. This is where something happens to our good sis and we have to pick lessons in this. Because I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. And Lani has admitted it. She loved him. So anything that he said to her, she was very gullible. Do I believe she gave permission for him to use her card allegedly to take out this debt? And it's a debt. He's basically got something called credit, allegedly. Do I think that happened without her permission? I believe Lani. I don't believe that she knew this. I do believe that she was naive. I do believe that she gave her card under a false pretense, allegedly. And I don't necessarily believe that she knew what she was doing. Now, did she give her express permission for her details to be used in the way in which it was allegedly used? No, I don't. And I understand why Lani is so upset. Now, what I find disgusting, and I say the word disgusting with my chest, is that I went into a Clubhouse room. So sometimes I'm at work and I go into Clubhouse and I want to hear what's going on. And I literally sit in the audience and listen. I used to host rooms, and I might do that again when we go into another lockdown, or if we go into another lockdown, I might do. But for now, I'm just so busy. I've got so much stuff to do. But if we're locked down and we have to stay in the house, then fine, maybe I might do. And maybe I might not even wait until that. Maybe I might. I don't know. Anyway, so I went into a Clubhouse room and it was about Tion Wayne. And it was basically saying, should Tion Wayne be cancelled? And loads of people were talking. But what was very common in the conversation is how people are judging Lani. And it's black women. How black women are criticising Lani. And basically saying she's embarrassing herself, this, that, and the other. And a lady came on Clubhouse and she said, why is it that as black women, we are policing how another black woman reacts to being defrauded? And one girl said, no, it's not about race. Don't bring that here. It's not about race, man. It's not about race. I almost put my hands up to come on stage and come off my mic. It is about race, because this is a room created by black people. There's majority black people here, and actually this story is doing the rounds on the black blogs. This is about race. This is about a black woman being policed about how she has dealt with being defrauded, number one. White people aren't talking about this because this isn't part of this story, isn't breaking in their culture, i.e. on the Daily Mail. This is doing the rounds on the black blogs, right? So when we talk about culture, this is what we're talking about. And we're also talking about a community where we have two people who are black, and this is what's happened. So let's not talk about race, because if this had been a white woman, had Lani been a white woman, I think that the response would be very different, and it would be empathetic to the sea of tears that this white woman would be crying. But because it's a black woman, it's almost like we're holding Lani to a different standard to what any woman of any race would be held to. Black women are always held to this higher standard of criticism, of being told and dictated on how to deal with things. And I think it's disgusting. Somebody's been defrauded, irrespective of who, what? Someone's been defrauded by somebody who's actually acknowledged that this has happened. He's just not acknowledging the fraud. Do you understand? But he's acknowledging that he took credit out. Even if he really believes that Lani gave him permission, you ain't been paying them monthly payments. Do the right thing and pay the damn thing off. Because you can, and you've said it. Had Lani come to me and said that, I would have paid it off. So what you're telling us is you have the money, you have the means to pay it off. So what is it that's stopping you? And I'll tell you what's stopping him from doing it. He just doesn't want to be seen as almost paying this off and it being seen as him acknowledging that he has committed fraud. And it's not that. Sometimes, if you're mature enough, you're able to sit there and say, you know what? And he could even give a statement. I did not commit this fraud that is being alleged. However, in the interest of Lani's mental health and in the interest of my own, I'm going to pay this off in full. And that will be the last time I should hear about it, speak about it. That would dead the story. But instead, he's goading her. And then we are criticising her for how she reacts to him goading her. She now is getting debt collection letters. Now, unless you've ever received a debt collection letter, have bailiffs at your door, I don't think you have any right to talk. And you don't necessarily have to have gone through fraud to know what it feels like for an agency, a company to hunt you down for money. But then to add being defrauded as the reason why fully compounds the way she feels. And Lani is entitled to react and deal with this however she likes. However she likes. We need to stop policing how black women react. We need to stop policing black women's feelings. We need to stop policing and tone policing black women. That's what we need to do. The disappointment is underneath the comments on various blogs. It is actually black women who are criticizing the way she's reacting. If she wants to scream, let her scream. Are you trying to tell me that each and every one of you that were leaving them type of comments under there criticizing Lani have never found yourself in a position where you have a kind of a break with reality because a man has caused you and pushed you over the edge? Have you? Have you never found yourself in a situation whereby a man has manipulated you and you've then realised the manipulation and you almost lose your mind? Listen, let me tell you something. A few years ago, I was dating this guy, right? And he would tell you that he is an artist, right? And I shouldn't be shady because he is talented, but I think that he believes his own hype. Anyway, he had basically asked me to pay for something and I sent him the money. Now, I said to him, I need the money on XYZ date because I need to pay my phone bill. And he was like, yeah, I'm going to pay the phone bill. Don't worry, I'll give you the money and to pay the phone bill. Don't worry, it's just a loan. I said, no problem. Do you know that it was not even that much money? I think it was like 50, 60 pounds. So the date passed now, I didn't get my money. This is a guy I'm in a relationship with, right? So then I message him and I say, listen, they're chasing me for the bill. They're about to cut my phone off. I need the money. Now, I'd already paid the bill. But I knew that if I hadn't said that, there would be no urgency for him to give me money back. So already, red flag. Why I was even in that relationship, I don't know. I deny him. I don't consider him an ex. He's just an example of all the devils that I dodged. Anyway, so he was like, give me the details of of EE at the time. Give me the details and I'll pay them directly. I said, no. Something just told me no. I said, put the money in my account. He said, no, I don't want to put the money in your account. I'll pay them directly. I said, well, no, because my brother's just paid the bill. So I had to lie. So now I owe my brother the money. So my story had to switch. And I didn't care at that point. I wanted my money back. Anyway, long story short, his brother ended up putting the money in my account. So my question is, how did your brother get involved in this? Like, let me tell you something. For those of you who do not know, I think that guy that I dated tried to do fraud, and what he would have used is a fraudulent card or credit card or bank card or whatever to pay the phone bill, and that would have been on my name. And that's the reason why he didn't want to put the money in my account, because he knew that if he was to do any fraudulent activity on my account, it would be identified quite quickly, especially with who I banked with at the time. Whereas if he had done the fraud to the mobile phone provider, I think it would have been less obvious that it was fraud. But something just told me fraud is involved. Just something told me. Obviously, the relationship ended in the bin. But the fact is, I could have easily been one of those people in that situation that was so besotted with this guy and gave him the details of my mobile phone provider. Then maybe he would have done that fraud. They would have closed my phone down. They would have done an investigation. All of this. I could have been arrested. Listen, I've said to this in previous episode before. A man can change your destiny, you know. A man can change your destiny. What we have now is access to the internet and communication, and modes of communication that was never had when I was growing up. And that being said, people can still experience fraud. What we're saying is shine your eyes, because it can happen to any one of us. Any one of us. What happened to Lani is a reminder of what could happen to any one of us. And I think a lot of people that are putting really rude things under the comments are being triggered by the reality that each and every one of them could have been a Lani at some stage in their life. So we need to be careful on what pulpit we are judging from. Because a lot of us have found ourselves in similar situation, the exact situation, or could have. Some people are in a situation now and don't even know it. I'm not even going to talk about the men who are supporting Tion Wayne in this, because anyone who thinks that Tion Wayne is right is waste. The evidence is there, insofar as he's admitted to purchasing a watch. He's admitted using her card to do it. Yeah? The fraud is alleged. It's allegedly. But the question that people should be asking, okay, Tion, have you been keeping up with the payments? Or did she make a promise to pay for the watch on your behalf? Because we all know that wouldn't make sense. No, people are not asking the right questions. Tion Wayne, since you're saying that she gave you permission, cool. So who's been making the monthly payments? Have you? You see, people are so enamored by celebrities that they fail to humanize them and hold them accountable. Nobody's holding his foot to the flames. And I definitely feel as though Tion Wayne needs to be held accountable. Now, topic of accountability. Somebody has set up a petition for Lani Good and it's been created in light of her alleged identity fraud claims towards rapper Tion Wayne to pay her back. And basically, they're trying to get 200 signatures on this petition. And if you go on the Shade Borough, that's where you would see this story. And it basically says, and I'll read, people can say what they want, but being defrauded is a very traumatic experience, and the lack of police response means all we have is social media, which is so unfair. Lani Good, we created a petition on change.org, and I will be sending a recorded delivery letter to Atlantic Records with a petition attached. You are not alone, and the best thing you can do right now is keep dropping all the receipts you have of this incident. Hugs, love, and respect. You see, since Tion Wayne doesn't want to do the right thing, I actually agree. I think there should be a petition to Atlantic Records, who have signed him, to basically say this is what's happening, holds him accountable. Now, Tion Wayne needs to think like a businessman. He does. He needs to think like a businessman, because clearly he can't think like a human being, in my opinion, and do the right thing. What is so disappointing is he could afford to pay her back, but he's choosing not to. And that in itself is not only manipulative, but it's vindictive. It's vindictive because you yourself know that you took this out, because you've said it. You yourself know you haven't been paying the monthly cost. So by that meaning alone, you should do the right thing and pay her back. I genuinely think that Lani is triggered because of this whole situation. I think she can't let go on principle, and I genuinely believe it is principle. I don't think she wants him back, but I think when this initially happened, many of us have been in that situation where you come out of a really bad relationship or whatever the situation is, but you want to have breakup sex. Like, let's be honest. Or you kind of want to get back with them, but you know you don't want to, but you want the idea that you can get back with them if you wanted to, but you know you don't want to be with them. Everybody's been in that situation. So I don't know why people are now saying, she said she wanted, is it Tion Wayne? She said she wanted to have sex with me, because you're so amazing. No, she was heartbroken, she was emotional, she was disorientated, she was confused. That's normal. How many of us have come out of bad relationships and went back? How many of us have wanted to go back, but maybe were rejected, but still wanted to go back? So let's not hold Lani to a standard that we never held ourselves. And let us be honest about what we are triggered about when Lani reacts to Tion. Because some people are triggered. That's why you have something to say. Rather than see it as somebody has allegedly taken advantage of her. She wants it put right. He continues to dangle his money, his access to money. He dangles his career in her face to say to her, I could if I wanted to, but I don't want to. And it's tormenting her. And because of that torment, we're getting the outbursts, we're getting the reactions. And that's how she's choosing to deal with it. But rather than hold him accountable, we're criticizing the person who's the victim of this situation. Shame on you if you're leaving negative comments under Lani Good's post or under any of the blogs. Shame on you. Because what you are not doing is accepting and acknowledging that somebody has been placed in a financial situation, and it's not by necessarily her doing, allegedly, and she wants it put right. When did that become a crime? When is that wrong? Why is it as black women we're not held to the same standard as non-black women? Why is our pain criticized and challenged? Why is it not accepted as our pain? That is the question. So I'm throwing my support behind Lani Good. I may even send her a DM and just let her know that she's being supported. There are people who truly support her. And all this trolling and bullying is just that, trolling and bullying by people who are shameless and people who would rather hide behind a keyboard than stand up and be counted. And I will tell her that. And I think that she needs to just focus on her mental health, and she needs to deal with this how she wants to deal with it. And no one should dictate to her how she should deal with it. I definitely feel that she needs to put her mental health first. There is no rule book on how to deal with a situation that Lani Good has found herself in. So if you don't have anything nice to say, just shut the hell up. That's what I would say. So on Sunday, I went to the cinema. I went to a really nice cinema, actually. I went to Everyman. Me, I was behaving like a bush girl, let me be honest. Listen, I'm from the ghetto, I'm from the hood. I ain't never been to no cinema where they are, first of all, where they don't check your tickets. Because here, they just checked it. But, you know, like, check your tickets. And the way we understand it is you've got to print it out. They will use one highlighter to make sure that you ain't... Then, the type of cinemas I used to go to back in the day, we go to cinema, me, my friends, and the mice. Yeah, we're all there. Do we... Yeah, we're all there. Like, you would be so disgusted to sit in the cinema because your feet would be sticky. Like, honey, I'm from the hood, honey. Cinemas have, improved since then, but depends what area you're going to. So you can imagine when I went to Everyman. My dear, for me, I didn't feel like every man. I felt like I'm every woman, honey. Imagine ordering food from your seat and they will come and deliver the food to you. Hey! I lived the life on Sunday. Yeah, and it wasn't just shit food though. It was proper food, as in well-cooked food. Then afterwards, I said, I must have dessert. Yeah. And you go and order popcorn. I say, you go. As in, they'll come to you and you order the popcorn, they'll bring it to you. What? Every man and every woman. That cinema was dope. And it was clean. It was really comfortable. Me, listen, I'm used to taking my socks to the cinema because where I grew up in the hood, we took our socks. You did. So me, I put my socks on. Kay was just looking at me like, girl, I can't take you nowhere. Honey, you can take me anywhere. But I know where I came from. I know where I am now, honey. And that cinema was everything. It was lit. It was expensive though. However, I would say if you want a really amazing cinema experience, Everyman Cinema. So I went to the one in Canary Wharf. And I went to watch King Richard. As I said, King Richard is... basically, his name's Richard Williams, but we're going to call him King Richard. He is the father of Venus and Serena Williams, who are tennis greatest. Let's just leave it like that. Tennis greatest. Now, there are a few themes of the movie, and King Richard is actually played by Will Smith. Will Smith, I give 8 out of 10 for acting. And a couple of the themes of the film was karma, classism, love, jealousy, humility, manifestation, perseverance, and so many more themes. But what I found quite emotional about the film was a father's conviction about the success of his children before they were even born, and having a plan and the importance of having a plan about how he would obtain success for them and how he would train them for success. And he trained them with structure, he trained them with focus and with love. In fact, I will go as far as to say that I think often people would ridicule him and would not necessarily believe in his vision, but yet he believed in his vision. He didn't just have one champion, he had 2. And he understood the essence of timing. And I say that because Serena was the stronger tennis player, and without giving too much away, Venus had to take almost like a back seat. And I say a back seat, but she was still training. And it was Serena who was being pushed first. And I will go as far as saying that Serena paved the way for Venus, insofar as once she had kind of made it, it made it easier for Venus to have access to the level of training required to be a champion. Now, that being said, there was this one scene and I loved it so much, and it was where Serena Williams, as a child, I don't even think she was older than 14, was given a proposal by Nike to have an endorsement deal, basically. And they were offering her 3 million. And Serena was like, well, they're offering me this 3 million before they can actually see what I can do. And the coach was like, this is a great offer, this what XYZ, XYZ. And Richard Williams basically said, Serena's dad was like, what do you want to do? And she goes, well, I want them to see me first. And what I loved about that scene is the negotiation tactics. It was the view that just because we've got this first offer doesn't mean this is the best offer. And in fact, once they can see what I can do, that will be my leverage. And I talk about that all the time on the Toya Talks podcast. I've got a negotiation masterclass where I talk about leverage and how to negotiate, and not just taking the first offer that someone gives you. Because you've been looking for a job for a long time, someone gives you an offer. Some people are like, I'm so grateful to have this offer, I'm not even going to negotiate. And then the person that comes in after you is on twice the salary you are, because you didn't take the time to understand your value and what you bring, and to negotiate, and to have a negotiating position. But rather you took the first offer. And I love the way that their father basically helped them to understand the business element of what they do. He really put education first. He made sure that he kept his children as children. He didn't want them to grow up too early. But equally, there was a business side to tennis that he recognised that he would have to instill in his children through education. And I loved that. And I identified with so many different scenes. For example, when I was growing up, I've told you guys, I always found education really difficult. It wasn't until I was 21 at university, literally just about to finish uni, and being told that I'm dyslexic, and telling my dad, and him not even... My dad didn't pander to it, and I couldn't understand it. I was almost made to feel like I had a stumbling block in front of me and I needed help. But my dad didn't approach it like that. He approached it as, okay, fine, you're dyslexic, and what next? You're still going to take them exams, you're still going to work like everybody else, and you are still going to enter life knowing what it is to work hard and fight for what you want. Because he knew that the world would not be easy on me. The world would not care that a black woman like me is dyslexic. And that is the reality of it. As I look back on my life, I know for a fact that being dyslexic and saying it in certain organisations, it wouldn't have mattered. They wouldn't have cared. So I had to develop the skill of understanding my learning disability to a point where it became my unique selling point of who I am. And I say unique selling point of who I am, knowing full well that I personally made the decision not to share that I was dyslexic, because I'd got to a point where I'd mastered my dyslexia. I understand how it manifests itself. I understand how I learn, how I put how I learn into practice. And I identified that in King Richard, in that he understood that Venus wasn't as strong a tennis player as Serena, but he focused on the things that made her strong and made her focus on that. And he really dealt with the mind and focusing both of their minds, Serena and Venus's mind, on knowing what greatness they wanted to achieve, because they are great and working for it. He made sure they worked hard and they practiced, but he made practice enjoyable for them. They were allowed to be kids, but he taught them key lessons about business and working hard and striving and dedicating your life to something to be great. There was a point in the in the movie where it talked about there not being there's no conventional path to success, and I think that was so poignant, because as black women there is actually no conventional path of success. There isn't a conventional way. It's not like white people who are from a privileged background. There is a conventional way to success because they've got money, Do you understand? Their parents went to this school, their great-grandparents opened the library, this and this. Their father had a trust fund. We don't have that. As children of first-generation immigrants, we don't have that. So the path of success is not the conventional, societal, acceptable way of success. I know that my path of success it came from really humble beginnings. It came from nothing. It came from my parents coming to this country for a better life. It came from me not always having a lot, but feeling like I had enough. It came from me understanding that we didn't have enough money, and that we didn't have a lot of money. And my dedication to be successful came from the examples that my parents set. It came from my dad never missing a day of work, and me watching him wake up at 5 o'clock every morning, doing prayers, working hard, going to work, coming home, being an adult student when he wanted to kind of move from being an accountant to a lawyer, and watching the dedication he put into that and setting the example for me. So for me, the theme, the point that was made when it talks about there not being a conventional path of success is you've got 2 black girls from Compton. Yeah, their environment at that time is not the conventional way of success. Not when you're seeing white kids their age going to tennis clubs and their parents having all this money to fund this passion of theirs. Do you understand? They came from parents who were dedicated to their children, and their dad who had a vision for them and what success would look like for them, and him training and manifesting it. And when we talk about manifestation, I've spoken about vision boards, and there's an episode on the Toya Talks podcast where I talk about vision boards and manifestation, the power of the mind. And every time he took them on tennis courts, they had a big paper with affirmations, and every time they'd play tennis, they'd have all the affirmations around the tennis court. And I loved that, and I love seeing it because it spoke into what I was saying about you can only manifest the things that you can see. So when I was talking about your vision boards and, putting on there what you want to manifest and really speaking into your manifestations and really sitting in what you are trying to make a reality, there is something powerful in that. There's something powerful in making the sacrifices required to place yourself in a position to manifest those greatness. And I don't think people understand that concept. When I was doing night classes, now remembering I'd already gone to law school, I already got my law degree, I'd already gone to law school, I'd already done my master's. I decided I wanted to do my level 4 diploma in SIPS. I was going every evening after work. See, I had to make those sacrifices in order to manifest the end goal, and the end goal was not just passing. I wanted a distinction, and I wanted to get my level 4 diploma in SIPS so that my pay bracket would automatically change. So I had to make the sacrifices to manifest that, and I had affirmations on the wall. So every morning I woke up, I remembered what I was working for. I was remembering what the bigger picture is. I was telling myself the greatness I expect from myself. You see, if you are trying to manifest something that you haven't written down, you can't see it. So if you can't see it, how are you able to make it become a reality? You see, what people are not aware of, what some people are not aware of is you are responsible. You are responsible for the success you want to manifest for yourself. That's why I had that episode. I think it's the second episode of the Toya Talks podcast. Dear black women, your manager is not the key to your success. You are. You are the key to your success. You make a decision whether you want to be average or you want to be great. And there's nothing wrong with being average. I feel like you need average to know what greatness looks like. And that's fine. But what I often have a problem with is when people try to define what greatness means to others. You have to define what success means and what greatness means to you. And when you watch King Richard, I think what you also appreciate is the integrity and the respect that they had for the sport. They would show up for the sport. They would learn the craft. They would put it into practice. And there was this beautiful scene where obviously, you know, Serena is kind of she got the coaching and everything, and she's participating in these tournaments. And even though Venus is still doing the coaching with her mum, obviously she's not getting that professional coaching from a professional coach. But because she was taught not to just wait for things to happen, but rather place herself in a position where she's able to achieve those things, Venus signed up to a tournament. She didn't tell her dad. And she started doing the tournament. And I thought it was beautiful because Richard Williams made it possible for Venus to do that. He was recording all the professional classes that Serena was getting. He was recording it, playing it to his wife, for his wife to learn all the techniques to teach Venus. Can you just imagine that? His dedication to his daughters and his dedication to proving that you can definitely manifest greatness is what brought tears to my eyes. Because those two girls owe their career to their father first. Because had he not seen greatness in them, he would not be able to put them in a position where they could realise their own greatness. And of course, they had to make the sacrifices to realise that greatness, because he could only take it so far. They had to really be convicted and really understand what the plan was for their life and really believe that they could achieve it. And they would always use positive affirmations. I am the greatest. And, you know, there was one scene where I don't know whether it was Venus or Serena, was asked, who do you want to be like? And one of them was like, no, I don't want to be like anyone. I want people to be like me. And I loved that. I love the idea that you have decided to create your own lane and dominate. And this is the point, isn't it? A lot of you are waiting for someone to create the opportunity for you. A lot of you are waiting. It's almost like you've convinced yourself there's going to be a knock on the door and someone's going to say, here is promotion, would you like it? Some of you think that greatness is just going to visit you like a thief in the night. And you're going to wake up after having this amazing dream, and that's what's going to convince you of your greatness. Some people don't necessarily appreciate the conviction of mind. You have to listen, if you want to be great in this world, you have to believe that you will be great. You have to be prepared to make the sacrifices required to be great. And this is what came through on that film, in that film. Are you prepared to be fearless in your conviction of what greatness looks like to you? Are you prepared to place yourself in a position to dominate what it is you're trying to achieve? Are you 100% clear in what you're trying to manifest? Because if the answer to any of those questions is no, greatness is not going to be a portion to you. Listen, when I went on the Toya Talks journey, I never once believed or thought about where it would be right now. I just knew that I wanted to share so that other black women wouldn't go through what I did. I've always known that there is a greatness in my life. I have always known that I was born for greatness. Always known. I've always felt like I just didn't fit in. Always. And I've said this before. I know that, and I've known that I had the ability to be someone very great. And I don't think I've peaked. I don't. But what I do believe is that I am going to be world renowned. I'm going to be known. I am going to be a force to be reckoned with on a stage in which people, when they hear my name, they know exactly who I am. When I made the decision to go on Big Brother, I'm going to say this, and it's going to be a little bit controversial, but I knew I'd get on Big Brother. I knew. I just knew. When I was younger, my dad kept a folder for me and my brothers, all our school reports and everything on there. And then my dad would write on there what he thought we would be when we'd grow up. So he'd literally, as we were growing up, it would change, right? But he would have like an initial view and he'd write it on there. And I always used to get confused because with mine, my dad had TV presenter, newsreader, lawyer, politician. And ordinarily you'd look at that and think, yeah, typical, right? No, not really. Because my dad was right. He was right about a lot of it. So I was an African entertainment TV presenter. I did that. The way I was discovered was actually kind of crazy. I was actually discovered in Notting Hill Carnival by a very well-known network in Nigeria. Literally, within 24 hours, I was discovered. I was already booked on a flight to Nigeria. I did a reel. I was on red carpets. I was interviewing people that you guys see now and they're big superstars. At that time, they were emerging stars. I met Wizkid, Davido, who else? Tiwa, Savage, Patarankin. I partied with Patarankin. Who else? There were so many of them. Dammy Crane, KC. There was listen, the list, and I've got all the pictures. Yeah. When I decided, after doing all the shows, and I'm talking about, I did Afro Hair and Beauty Show. I was the first presenter to present on their own on an Afro Hair and Beauty Show live event. I did the African Hair Awards. I did so many events. Like, I don't think people fully understand, unless you've been following me for the beginning, like how I've got to this point. All the while having already studied law, had already completed my education. Do you understand? Because there was a business element, and I get it now. My dad used to say, education is really important. It gives you a foundation. At the time, I didn't understand it, but I understand it now. I'm a businesswoman. I'm a businesswoman because of the education I've had. Because I went through the education system. And remember, I've always said education isn't for everybody, but you need to be a subject matter expert in what you do. So if it means you have to achieve certain qualifications, that's the educational path you need to go through. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but I studied law. I followed law right up until masters. You can't give me a contract that I'm not going to understand. It's impossible. I do all my contracts for my business now. Every last one of them. I do all of the contracts. When I was an African entertainment TV presenter, who was doing my contracts? It was me. When I was negotiating my money, who was doing that? Me. My manager wasn't doing it. My manager was just fronting. And he was fronting because I was in an industry that was very sexist and male-dominated, and I needed somebody to front me. That's it. Otherwise, I was the one procuring all my opportunities. He wasn't doing anything. He got me one interview somewhere. Wasn't even bloody paid. Let's be real. My management were a front. And I was the real talent. Not just only in talent, but in business. It was me. But I recognised I couldn't do it all on my own. So I needed a team around me that would camouflage me while we did the business. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? When I went on Big Brother, no one knew. My management didn't know I'd auditioned. I knew I was going to get Big Brother. When I did my audition video, I knew I was going to be on Big Brother. I knew it. I felt it. I believed it. I turned up to the audition on my own. It was the highest recorded audition process in the whole of the history of Big Brother. It was the highest turnout. It was in London. I went there on my own. People was there with their friends talking, making false friends. No, I was just standing there by myself. And when I had to go to the audition, there was like 6 or 7 different rounds. I passed every single round. Every single round. It was intense. And then I got the call. Hi, Toya. Yeah, how are you doing? I'm fine, thank you. Well, I just want to let you know that you'll be on Big Brother this year. I was so excited because I knew that this is what I wanted to do. I manifested this. Now, was that the right time for me to go on there? Probably not. But I didn't go into Big Brother with a plan. I just knew that this would be an opportunity to catapult me in Nigeria. And for all intents and purposes, it was, until I came out to the news my father died, and it literally changed the trajectory of my whole life. But I believe I am now where I'm supposed to be because this is where the ancestors need me to be. And I look back on my career and I'm so grateful for every opportunity, everyone I met, everything. But everything I've gone through in my career, my commercial contract consultant career, has led me to this moment. Toya Talks was always something I knew I had to do. I just didn't know I had to do it at the time. I always shied away from it. But I've always been that person who has wanted others to do well, to be better than me. And it started off on Snapchat, sharing every morning my experience at work. You guys would literally come with me to work, on my way to work. Remember, I will talk on a Snapchat on the way home, you guys knew the path. You guys knew because you'd see certain things. You knew the path. And then I had my first live event in 2018. Sold out 72 hours. And then there was a cathartism of being able to share my experience of the working world as a black woman. And then as I've attained success in my career, I'm giving you guys the blueprint. Now, I don't know about you guys, but what has happened over the last at least 3 years, I've manifested. I know how great Toya Talks will be. I know how great it is now and the lives it's changing. I know what I'm manifesting in 2022, and I'm going to encourage you guys to go and listen to a previous podcast episode of mine called Career Manifestation, Vision Boards and Energies. We're about to enter a new year, 2022. And what tends to happen is everyone's all excited. New year, new me. You see the one with the steps. You know the image of the woman climbing up the steps, leaving the baggage behind. You're going to see all of that. Oh, New Year's resolution, all of that. It's all crap. Why? Because after the mid of January, everyone forgets. Everyone kind of, I say everyone, but you know, the proverbial everyone. But people tend to forget about what their focus is. And you go through the same kind of path that you do every year in the hope that you'll catch on to a change. I had a conversation with an amazing black woman on Sunday. And she says, Toya, have you started your vision board? I said, have I started my vision board, girl? Of course. I've started planning my vision board for 2022. So how I usually spend Christmas is building my vision board. Everything that's on my current vision board for 2021, I put into an envelope. And all the things I've manifested this year, I have tick boxes under each thing, under each category, because I've got different categories. So I can tell you, my first category is personal development for 2021. I have one category for Toya Talks, another for personal targets, wedding plans, family planning, and then certain businesses. And under each heading, I have a manifestation for the year. And under each heading, there is at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7, 8, in fact, things for each heading I need to achieve. And there's a box. And the box only gets ticked at the end of the year. And anything that doesn't get ticked, I make the decision. Do I bring it forward into 2022? And then I will then manifest and focus on manifesting those things? Or are there certain things that doesn't necessarily fit into the plan, but I might need to rejig? And then I also celebrate all the things I've been able to manifest. Then in January, I put up my new vision board for 2022. And I have my vision board above my desk so that I can manifest what I can see, but also it holds me accountable. If I feel wary, if I self-doubt, if I am reflective, I get to look at my vision board to hold me accountable. So my question to you is, what is going to hold you accountable? Is it your drive for success and greatness? Is it understanding that you are the key to your success? Is it you discovering where your greatness sits? I'm going to encourage everyone to go and watch King Richard. Without giving everything away, I've given you highlights of what I found quite amazing. And I'm going to leave you with this. So during the film, there is a scene between him and his wife. And basically, I don't know which one of them said it, but it went a bit like this, that the world hasn't always ever respected Richard Williams, but the world are going to respect Venus and Serena. And that was his motivation. I found that so powerful because in a world that just disrespects and has disrespected black people, he knew that in order for his respect to be reinstated, he needed his daughters to be the best that they ever could. And this is why we now have a film called King Richard, actually dedicated to the sacrifices he made and the manifestations he made in ensuring the greatness of his daughters. And there's a thing or two to learn from watching that film, so I'm going to encourage each and every one of you to go and watch. And whilst I've kept everything quite high level, I don't want to spoil the film for anyone. That's why I'm not going too much in depth, but I've given you guys enough to go ahead and give it a chance, go and have a watch. I also wanted to take this opportunity to pay my respects and offer condolences to Virgil Abloh, who is the Off-White designer and artistic director of menswear for Louis Vuitton, who recently passed away. And it's so sad, and I know it's a big blow to not only the fashion industry, but people that loved him and respected him within the industry. To see a black man in his position, who is the designer of Off-White, but the artistic director for Louis Vuitton, is amazing. That we get to see that in our lifetime, and we can't overlook the greatness that he provided to fashion. So I definitely wanted to offer some condolences and respect to Virgil Abloh, who passed away on Sunday, and my condolences to his family and his loved ones. So before I close the episode, there is an article that I wanted to read, and I wanted to offer a perspective on the article because I think it affects everyone, affects everyone or affects most people. So, tempted to join the Great Resignation, 3 in 4 Britons consider quitting, but some job experts say stay put for better pay conditions and flexibility. If you're thinking of quitting your job because bosses are enforcing working hours or removing work from home benefits, you are not alone. Workers are reevaluating their working lives after the turbulence experienced over the last few years due to COVID-19. According to online jobs board CV Library, 76.4% of UK professionals intend to look for a new job in 2022. It is due in part to the way the pandemic has shifted people's priorities and desires. Perks like working from home, parental leave, private medical cover and flexible working hours are all now more in demand than they were prior to the pandemic. A report from insurance and employee benefits firm MetLife revealed that 59% were willing to quit if their work values weren't accommodated, while 50% admitted they are willing to sacrifice more of their basic salary to get a personalised employee benefits package. But many are also quitting because of the way they've been treated by their employers during the pandemic and how they're being treated now following a return to the office. It appears that a return to strictly enforced working hours and a lack of flexibility has backfired for some employers. Retraction of benefits and flexibility is one of the many reasons fueling a movement that has now been dubbed the Great Resignation or the Big Quit. Other factors such as Brexit and people relocating during the pandemic have also contributed to workers considering their options. The resulting lack of skills has affected sectors like retail, hospitality, warehousing, farming and logistics. To entice skilled and even non-skilled workers, employers are offering better pay, sign-up bonuses and free training. As a result, people are more confident in quitting their jobs. They recognise that there could be better opportunities elsewhere and that depending on their industry, the chances of being unemployed for long may be slim. Taking advantage of the Great Resignation. This has got some employees panicking about staff levels. So for those who don't want to leave their jobs, the Great Resignation is offering something they may have not have had before: leverage. Bradford Godwin, Chief Content Strategist at jobs website Lensa, says it's getting more difficult to attract new talent, particularly in sectors like digital marketing, as there weren't enough senior level applicants to fill roles, creating a skills gap. If you're sitting at the senior level in certain industries, it's going to be tricky for your employer to replace you, and that gives you the chance to negotiate better pay and benefits. There are also non-financial benefits to staying in your current job. Dee Coakley, co-founder and CEO of global employment platform Boundless, says staying in your current job can be preferable because it involves less stress and changing roles when you're already in a role where you not only know the ropes but are also good at it. Negotiating for things like flexibility, better pay and other perks can be awkward. However, there are several things you could do before, during and after a meeting with your boss to make sure you keep your professionalism intact. These include: 1. Demonstrate the benefits of remote working. So if remote working is important to you but your employer is hesitant about offering this benefit, you could try and persuade them by highlighting the advantages. Create a clear and proactive plan which shows how you plan to work remotely at your chosen location and the reasons why this is better than working at the office. Coakley says, for example, it might be better for their mental health or means they get to spend more time with their children. 2, do research on salaries. If more pay is what you're after, you should be prepared to do the legwork here. 2, Chenny Hamilton, CEO of HR Consultancy and research house Find Your Flex, advises highlight your value, shop around to find out what those in other companies doing your job are earning. The website Glassdoor is great for this. Write down how you want to work, the benefits you'd love to receive in return for the valuable time you give your current employer. A respectful delivery is key, and offer of notice if it's not entertained may change their tune. Number 3, promote yourself. I'm not going to read everything. Number 4, consider the time. And the reason I'm reading this is I just want you to know that it's an employer and a consultants market. I think that there is something to be said about the shift in the commercial space, and I've said this several times, that several industries and a lot more industries are becoming very buoyant. I think it's an employee and a consultant market because we get to dictate the terms. We have a lot more leverage. You see, a lot of people have left London because they recognise that you don't necessarily have to live in London to work in London, and equally that you don't have to actually live close to where you work. In fact, remote working has been, for me, instrumental in the development of my career. It means that I can work longer hours if I choose to, but equally I have a really good work-life balance should I choose to. Equally as well, I recognise that actually where my desire lies is to continue to work for international companies, and I'm a bit more clear about kind of the path that I would like to go down. I think that remote working is something that is here to stay, albeit hybrid. Now, for me personally, remote working is non-negotiable. That is part and parcel of my role. What I have found though is a lot of you don't recognise the leverage that you have, and you're taking a lot of your employees at face value. The last 2 episodes, we've seen a couple of dilemmas where people have been promised certain things, nothing in writing, and then they have the rug pulled underneath them when they're then forced to go into the office. You need to operate your career like it's a business, irrespective of whether you're fixed term, perm, or part-time. I definitely think as a consultant, you already see your career as a business because of the way in which you contract your services. But I think there's something to be said about people not actually understanding their bargaining power and their leverage. Now, as I've read this article, it talks about leverage, but equally, I've given and developed a masterclass for you to understand where your negotiating and bargaining power sits. If you are going to accept terms and conditions, what I am going to say is anything that is agreed, maybe in an email, maybe on a call, as soon as you sign your contract, usually within the contract, there is something that says that you are bound by the terms of the contract, and anything that was agreed prior to the contract that is not included in the contract would always take precedence, which means anyone that promised you something outside of the contract, didn't put it in the contract, they're not bound by the promise. You see, it's really important that you understand that everything needs to be in writing and signed. Just because somebody puts something in an email or maybe an offer, that's not a contract. An offer is not a contract. It's not a term of your employment. The term of your employment is what you sign. It's a contract between you and the organisation. It has the terms and conditions of engagement, your work, your how you're employed, and what is expected of you insofar as the organisation you work in and for. The reason I read this article is because I talk a lot about a lot of the content here, and yet a lot of us make these really, really worrying mistakes, which, to be quite honest with you, if you really understood the market in which you work in, you shouldn't be making these mistakes. Now, don't get it wrong. I understand that people don't necessarily have a legal background, etc., and that's what I'm here for, right? I am going to do a masterclass on your employment contract. And when I say employment contract, consulting services contract, I'm going to discuss contracts in January, and I'm going to do a remote masterclass. I'm going to literally throw up on the screen an employment contract, and I'll try and see if I can find a consulting contract, and I'll mark it up. I'll go through each clause that I think are important and pertinent to employees and consultants alike. And also I will do a markup that shows you how to kind of review an employment contract, whether you're a seasoned professional with contracts or whether you're somebody who doesn't really understand contracts too much, but you're you're okay with them. I'm going to give you an overall well-rounded view about contract, because I'm getting increasingly concerned about the way people are throwing away their leverage by thinking that they've agreed something, but it's something completely different when they sign. I do think that a lot of people are looking for pastures new in 2022, and I think that's part and parcel of COVID and the reality of what COVID has shown us about work, life, employment, consulting, and just the commercial space. And I just wanted to also read the article so that everybody is aware that organisations are also aware that there's a shift. Now, how you engage in those organisations is ultimately going to determine what you get out of these organisations. So I'm going to leave the podcast episode there. I'm hoping that this episode will resonate with all of you, or if not all of you, someone who can really identify with a lot of the key themes and topics that I've raised here on this episode. For those of you who do not know, I am vlogging. I've been retrospectively vlogging. Now, what do I mean by that? I've been vlogging since July. And part of it is because I didn't want the pressure of every week putting out content. So I figured when I made the decision to vlog, I ran a poll on Instagram, and it was an overwhelming 100% said, yeah, Toya, we want you to vlog. We want to see parts of your life outside of kind of, social media, but equally how, your businesses and everything play into who you are, and how, what it is, what drives you, like what does your life look like. So it's a balance between maintaining my privacy but sharing, but I am really enjoying vlogging. I recently purchased a new vlogging camera during Black Friday, and it's literally arrived. I'm actually staring at it. I'm so excited to use it. That being said, the vlogs are going live. So my first vlog will be out on the Sunday the 5th of December at 5 p.m. and I will be vlogging and uploading live bi-weekly. So we're going to do bi-weekly to start with, and then I will then progress to do weekly vlogs, partly because there's just a lot going on in my life, and you'll see it in the vlog. That's the reason why I've made that decision. But equally as well, I want to gain momentum and get used to kind of editing again and factoring in vlogging as well as podcasting. And I edit all my own podcasts and I master all my podcast episodes. So there's a bit of a balance act, and I consult for an organisation, and I'm running my businesses. So there's a lot happening in my life. So bi-weekly vlogs is what I'm committing to for now. I also want to say that in terms of episodes, we've got 3 more episodes left of this year. So the last episode of the year will be Tuesday the 21st of December. And then I'm going to take I think it's a week or 2 break. And the first episode of 2022 on the Toya Talks podcast will be on the 4th of January. That's Tuesday the 4th of January. So I'm really excited to take a break, but also to come back in 2022 because we've got some fire content, some fire podcast episodes. I am too excited. So listen, if you want to follow me on social media, I'm very active on Instagram, especially Instagram stories. So my personal Instagram page is Toya_Washington. The Toya Talks podcast has an Instagram page too. It's Toya_Talks. Follow me on TikTok, Toya Washington, which is all one word. I am also on Twitter, Toya_W, and of course the birthplace of Toya Talks, which is Snapchat. My handle is Toya Washington, all one word. And also as well, if you want to follow me on YouTube and also be one of the first to watch my new vlog, which will be out every 2 weeks, but the first of which will be out on Sunday, the 5th of December. And then every 2 weeks, it will be a Sunday around 5 o'clock. So I'm really excited. Go ahead and follow me on YouTube at home with Toya. I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to thank each and every one of you for joining me. If you're listening to the Toya Talks podcast on Apple Podcasts, please rate and review the podcast, because I do often read your reviews. I do often see your ratings and things like that. Make sure you share the podcast with anyone who you think needs to acquaint themselves with the Toya Talks podcast. As you know, the Toya Talks podcast and platform advises, teaches and motivates Black women how to navigate the world of work safely, and in turn highlight the path of our success. More importantly, I create the tools required to be able to navigate the world of work. And equally, we come here and we create a safe space for us to share. If you have a work-related dilemma or a life dilemma that you want us to discuss here and me to advise on, then email hello@toyatalks.com. Of course, if you want to keep abreast of all the news on Toya Talks, then make sure you visit the website toyatalks.com. I am going to wish you an amazing week, an amazing month. As we gallop to the end of the year, please think about all the things that you want to manifest for 2022, all the things you want to work on, all the things that you want to achieve, and let's make those things a reality by manifesting them and putting together a vision board that you're able to use and hold accountable to your visions as you progress into 2022. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Toya Washington, and you have been listening to the Toya Talks podcast.